Good afternoon, UMS 12. Welcome to our second part, which is we are still discussing reading and writing fiction, but this time we will be having another element of mastering the craft, which is setting, the time and place. Now setting, when our readers read fiction, we have to make them experience we want to make our we want to make the readers experience what is real, okay, even if it's a fictional life, even if it's a fictional world, they have to experience something real, and that is where the setting will come in, the time and place, because it ensures the readers that they are experiencing the story in the most physical sense. Now let's start with the place. Okay? The place of the story, of course, refers to the specific and definite location of a story, either on a large or on a smaller level. What planet, what continent, what country, what state, what city, what neighborhood, what street are the characters in? Okay? The idea here is to ground the readers in place. You also have to include the possibility of weather because the weather may also affect the way readers feel about the characters. Okay, it is the in establishing the place, we may somehow affect the actions in the story. Now, as integral as the place, the time also gives your readers a sense of backdrop of the story in the big sense. For example, what era, what century, what year are the characters in? Or in the small sense, what season, what day of the week, what time of day are the characters in? So that is also part of establishing the time in your setting. For example, in the Hunger Games is post-apocalyptic, futuristic ang time. And also the setting is kind of a dystopian, right? When we say dystopian, di ba, it's more of the future is dark, it's a little damaged, it's a negative connotation when we say dystopian. So that's the setting of the Hunger Games. Unlike the Great Gatsby, the setting is old American, 1940s. Okay, so the setting really affects the characters and the actions in the story. Now, it is important to note that when we are able to establish the setting, the time and place, somehow we can also establish the mood of the story. When we say mood, it is the atmosphere of the story. It is the emotional landscape of a literary piece. Okay? For example, Edgar Allan Poe. If you're familiar with Edgar Allan Poe, he is a writer who is famous for his morbid short stories. For example, if you have read The Cast of Amontillado, English 9, right? In grade 9, you should have read that. Edgar Allan Poe is known for that way of telling stories in a morbid way because he is a master of using setting to maximize the mood of his stories. For example, I will be lifting an example paragraph from his short story entitled The Fall of the House of Usher. Look at the example paragraph. During the whole of a dull, dark, and soundless day in the autumn of the year, when the clouds hung oppressively low in the heavens, I had been passing alone on horseback through a singularly dreary tract of country, and at length found myself as the shades of the evening drew on within the view of the melancholy house of Usher. Look at the choice of words. Look at his diction. Analyze the diction. Based on the choice of words, Edgar Allan Poe has established an atmosphere that is dark, that is almost like a horror, almost like a terrifying feeling because of the words dull, dark, soundless day, the clouds hung oppressively low in the heavens. So it contributes to the mood of the story. Okay. Now let me proceed with the pace of time. Do we just write a short story in a specific time of day all throughout the story, or is it possible that we can manipulate the pacing of time? Because that's possible in fiction writing. Remember, this is a product of our imagination, and imagination is limitless. So when we say pacing in fiction writing, it refers to the manipulation of time. For example, I want to describe an event in the story in slow motion, as it happens in slow motion. Yes, I can do that. What else? I can travel through time in the past. I can also travel or give a hint into the future. That's also part of manipulation of time. And those are devices. Those are literary devices that we call flashback or foreshadowing. When we say flashback, it's a technique that we use to take the narrative back in the past. Maybe because the events in the past have contributed to the events in the present. That could also be that could be the reason why we use flashback, or we could use flashback because we want to relate an event in the past in the current time frame of the story. We use flashback. Now, foreshadowing is another literary device wherein the writer gives clues or hints of what is to happen or what is to come later in the story. Now, foreshadowing may begin at the exposition. It may occur at the beginning of the story so that the reader may develop expectations about the upcoming events. Okay, now another element of fiction that we are going to emphasize here is point of view. Okay, when we say point of view, um, which eyes or whose eyes are you telling the story? Whose eyes is is the story told? Okay, from whose eyes is the story told? That is what we call point of view. Okay, it's the narrative voice in the story. Now, I have here a YouTube video of a more comprehensive concepts on point of view.